What's going on, family? My name is Seiko.
And this Baytash.
And this is the Sadiq.
Podcast Preliminary Thoughts. We welcome you guys to yet another episode, to yet another issue that we're going to address that's going on in our communities. Are y'all ready? Because I am. Oh, Lord.
Let's get into it.
Let's get into it. So today, our topic is going to be housing in New York City. Housing in New York City specifically, right? Because as everyone knows, housing is number one, it's a city, state, national, and global problem, right? This is a problem all over, right? When you look at the city, it's a problem. When you look at the state, it's a problem. When you look at the nation and the country itself, it's a problem. When you go global, it's a problem. So, but today, we're specifically talking about the city of lights, right? The city that never sleeps, which is New York City, housing in New York City. So to begin this, this yarn, as Lupe Fiasco said, right? Top cat chat. Let's begin another yarn, right? To begin this, we're going to define housing according to New York City Housing Preservation and Development, HPD, right? According to them, what people are entitled to in regards to housing and their rights. We're going to start off with the definition, because housing in New York City is absolutely horrible. If you're poor or you're middle class, absolutely horrible. If you're rich, housing is amazing. You get access to whatever it is that you want. But if you're poor or you're working class, it is absolutely horrible. That's a fact. Anyone who listens to this, unless you're living somewhere else, you can agree to my statement that housing is just absolutely horrible. So, I'm going to read you guys a couple of definitions that the HPD, this is coming from New York City. So I'm not reading this from a regular article. This is a consensus from NewYorkCity.gov, the HPD, Housing Preservation and Development, of tenants' rights and responsibilities. Oh, Lord. Y'all ready? Y'all ready to see the contradictions? So now it says, in New York City, tenants have many rights relating to the safety and quality of their housing. Tenants should expect to live in safe, well-maintained buildings that are free from vermin, leaks, and hazardous conditions. Laws protect tenants from harassment and discrimination. Tenants have responsibilities to their building owners and other tenants, including not damaging the building and responding to annual owner inquiries related to window guards, lead-based paint, and to maintain smoke and carbon monoxide detectors. Right? So it goes in, right? It says, what are my responsibilities as a tenant? Tenants must comply with provisions of the law and are responsible for violation caused by willful acts, gross negligence, and abuse. These, as well as unreasonable refusal to allow access to the apartment by the owner or his or her agent or employee for the purpose of making repairs or improvements required by the Housing Maintenance Code and Multiple Dwelling Law, may constitute grounds for eviction proceedings. Tenants are also responsible to respond to owners on legally required notices, including the notice regarding lead-based paint and window guards. And then it says that's responsibility as a tenant. What are responsibilities of my landlord? Oh, man. Yusuf, I think they in trouble now. Once I read this, I think we in for some trouble here.
Let's drop some heat on them.
It says, what are the responsibilities of my landlord? Owners must ensure that buildings are safe, clean, and well maintained in both common areas and in individual apartments.
Wait a minute.
Uh-oh.
So you telling me that it's the landlord's responsibility to to make sure that the building is safe and they up to code. That's their responsibility.
Oh man.
Bro, like you look at these government funded buildings, and that's not what's going on, bro. Like,
Oh man.
so are you telling me that the government is breaking the laws that the government set?
Oh, I'm telling. Oh, you know what I'm saying?
Bruh.
I'm just saying.
They telling on themselves.
Oh man.
Like,
The hypocrisy. So, but anyways, it says owners must ensure that buildings are safe, clean, and well maintained in both common areas and in individual apartments. Among other responsibilities, owners must provide and maintain security measures, heat, hot and cold water, and good lighting. Uh-oh. Hold on. Let me run that back. Big bro, should I run that back, Betash?
I mean, I definitely think it's worth saying again.
Let me run that back, cause I don't think the people in the back heard that. Among other responsibilities, owners must provide and maintain security measures. Heat. Did y'all hear that? They must provide and maintain security measures, heat, hot and cold water, and good lighting.
So how many points is that taking?
Oh my God. If this was an exam, woo, I think we're in the negatives. I think we are in the negatives.
yo, Richie Torres, man, tell your your landlord friends who funded your campaign, who owned the 333 building. Tell them we said what's up, man. Tell them your constituents from Congressional District 15 in the in the African Muslim community. Tell them we said what's up, man. Like, we here.
You know what I'm saying? So anyways, owners must register the property annually with HPD if the building is rent stabilized. The owner must register if the building is rent stabilized. The owner must register rents annually with the New York State Homes and Community Renewal, and the owner must be in compliance with the New York City Housing Maintenance Code and New York State Multiple Dwelling Law.
Wait, so you're telling me, you mean to tell me, you Sekou Cisse reading from this government website, you mean to tell me, Yusuf Siddiq, that the government is breaking the laws that the government set? Is that what's going on here?
I think that's what it is, bro. I think.
That's confusing as hell, man. Like, yo, Richie Torres, man, Vanessa Gibson, Eric Adams, yo, what's up with y'all peoples, man? Like, what's going on? Like, what's going on, bro?
What's going on here? It's not, the math is not adding up.
Nah, something's going on.
Something.
The math ain't mathin'.
It's not. And it says, if you are a tenant in a privately owned building, there are several things you can do. The question is, my landlord refuses to make repairs to my apartment. What can I do? Nothing, because they are breaking their own laws. But let's go back to what they're saying in brief. They said, my landlord refuses to make repairs to my apartment. What can I do? If you are a tenant in a privately owned building, there are several things you can do to get your landlord to make repairs. However, you may want to take the following steps in order to establish a record. So we have to establish a record first. So you're giving, basically, the New York City.gov, the government is basically giving the landlords a benefit of the doubt before the tenants, and we have rights. Okay. It said to establish a record, first contact the property owner, managing agent, or building superintendent regarding the repairs. Number two, if the property owner, managing agent, or superintendent does not respond, write a letter that describes the problems in your apartment and ask for the repairs to be made by a certain date. And then it goes into detail, right? Number three, if you do not receive a response to the letter, you should try to contact the owner in person or by phone. Let him or her know that if the repairs are not completed, you will file a complaint. If the owner still does not respond or fails to provide essential services, you may file a complaint. And then it goes into detail. Next, I have no heat or hot water in my apartment. What can I do? Let's pause for a moment. How many people in New York City right now do not have heat or hot water in their apartments?
A lot.
And you know, I keep mentioning the 333 East 181st Street, where the Bronx high-rise fire happened. There were at the very least 10 complaints about heat in that building in December alone. At the very least, there were 10 complaints in that building, in that one building about heat. About heat. And mind you, these same people, they own multiple buildings in the Bronx. They own 2000 Valentine. They own 355 East 184th Street. They own 365 East 184th Street. They own a couple of buildings on Webster as well. So if there were 10 heat violations in 333 East 181st Street, imagine what's going on in their other buildings. Just think about that
across
for
New
a
York
second.
City. This is across New York City. This is just a couple of buildings. So imagine other buildings in New York. And we're going to get into some of the actual buildings here in New York City. But there's a list of tenants' rights and responsibilities. This is the last one I'll read in regards to heat and hot water. It says, I have no heat or hot water in my apartment. What can I do? Tenants without heat or hot water should file a complaint by calling 311. Heat is required between October 1st and May 31st, a period designated as heat season. Building owners are required to provide tenants with heat during these months under the following conditions. When the outside temperature is below 55 degrees Fahrenheit between the hours of 6 a.m. and 10 p.m., building owners must heat apartments to at least 68 degrees Fahrenheit. HPD can only issue violations if the owner fails to supply adequate heat when the outside temperature is below 55 degrees Fahrenheit. First and foremost, we live in New York City. 55 degrees Fahrenheit? Who came up with these rules? 55 degrees Fahrenheit is cold. Yes, it is. It's not warm. It's not hot.
Especially in old buildings. Like, I live in an old building, and it's very drafty. I mean, it's a privately owned building, so it's not part of like HPD or anything like that. It's an old building. It has drafts. It's constantly cold. Like, the heat, there's always problems. Like, I was looking up on one of those like housing apps. I think it's like Open Igloo or something. And there's like 50 violations. There's like 9 lawsuits or something like that. Some crazy stuff. I didn't really look into the details, but it's all like typical stuff. Heating issues all the time. Water issues all the time. And with all the fires in the Bronx, you worry because you wake up and it's cold, and it's just like how many people in the building are probably using the stove to heat the apartment in the morning. Like, I know I do. I have to, and when the winter comes, because it gets cold inside, like before it's cold enough where they technically have to put the heat on, and you have to heat the place with the burners on the stove or with the bottom part of the stove, the oven. And, I mean, it can be dangerous if you're not paying attention, and it's just like how many other people in the building are having to do that. So it's a problem. It's a problem whether it's HPD. It's a problem. It doesn't matter because these buildings are trash, and the landlords are not paying to have them fixed. They're just band-aiding these issues, and it's just constant.
Thank you for that, Betash. And 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., what if the degree falls before that at 5 a.m.?
Mm-hmm.
Are you like, who made up these rules?
I mean, even if it does, yeah, by the time you wake up, well, if you're waking up after that, there's heat, but it's very inconsistent. And in the old buildings, well, many people live in the old buildings, the pipes are trash, whether it's the water, whether it's the boiler, whatever they're using. A lot of these landlords they're not trying to pay. And so, I mean, there was probably the majority of a winter once when we had no heat. There was like no heat, very little bit. It would come on for like 5 minutes in the middle of the day. Like, obviously it's gotten better because, they will be held accountable to some degree, but the city, whatever, I can't say they do very little. I don't work for them, but the result is not great. These landlords get away with a lot of horrible treatment of their tenants. And then look at a building like 333, which is obviously not just, some private owner. I mean, I don't think, right? Is that is that considered a privately owned building? Like,
Who knows? So these, I just read you guys the tenants' Bill of Rights here in New York City. So now, this is the tenants' constitution, right? This is what we're entitled to. Now let's see if the city, the owners, and the landlords are abiding by this constitution. So first, I want to segue into something short. The Bronx News reported that, keep in mind, New York has the 4th highest unemployment rate in the United States of America. Did y'all hear that?
Wait, hold up. Wait a minute. Y'all thought I was finished? Hold up. Ain't this the city of dreams? Like the Big Apple?
Right. Right.
How in the hell do we have the 4th highest unemployment rate
in the United States of America? How? It says speed hiring, the Great Resignation. There are a lot of different jobs trending. There are a lot of different job trends happening right now. In this week's Deep Dive segment, New York 12's Christy Reeder is taking a look at the big counties in New York to see what is happening in the workforce. New York State has the 4th highest unemployment rate in the nation at 6.2%. Most of that is because of what's happening around New York City, where the unemployment rate is 7.9%. It is still persistently high, one of the highest of all metropolis in the country, says Caleb Silver of Investopedia. Right? And then the article is very short. It just goes into the fact that we have literally the 4th highest unemployment rate in the nation. This is embarrassing. So why do I bring this up? I bring this up because now look at housing in New York City. It has a direct correlation. I'm going to read you another article from New York CBS, where it says, New York City couple forced to move says good cause eviction bill needed to limit surprise rent spikes. The fabric of communities is going to change. It says, husband and wife, David Salisbury Fry and Claudia Frylander, are musicians. He's an opera singer and she's a voice coach. They've lived on West End Avenue near Lincoln Center for 15 years. That is until they opened a rent renewal offer on New Year's Day. They plan on raising our rent 74%. Oh Lord. Oh my goodness. They plan on raising our rent 74%. That's almost double. Salisbury Fry said, their building was rent stabilized for 2 decades until it was destabilized several years ago, meaning it could now go for market price. By law, market price buildings must give tenants written notice if rent is going up more than 5%. Time out. Wall up. Wait a minute here. It says by law, market price buildings must give tenants written notice if rent is going up more than 5%. Their rent just went up 74%. That is 15 times more. Almost 15 times more of a percentage. In which, by law, they're supposed to tell them if their rent is going up 5% in comparison to 74 or 75%. 15 times 5, last time I checked, is what? 75, right?
Yeah.
So their percentage rate went up 15 times.
I'm confused. How does that even happen? Like, how does like rent just jump
Yeah.
75%? Like, how do they even do? Like, how does that even happen?
How?
Like, and how do they get away with this? Well, we know how they get away with it. You know, they got our government officials in their pocket. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yep.
again, like we know that, you know, one of the landlords from of 333 gave some money to Richie Torres as part of his campaign. That's why he's not talking. That's why he's not saying anything about holding them accountable. Hey, Richie Torres, what's up, man?
To continue, it says the good cause eviction bill will cap it at 3%. So this bill, called the good cause eviction bill, is supposed to cap your rent raising only 3%. And theirs went up to 74%. Lord have mercy.
Almost 25 times more.
Okay. Continuing, right? And the article is very short. It says, you know, as long as it is under consideration, right? Oh, so this bill is actually under consideration. It's not even passed yet. So it says, as long as it is under consideration but hasn't passed, landlords will feel like they're under pressure to raise rent as much as they can, Salisbury 5 said. Ultimately, they were forced out and had to change communities, but they considered themselves lucky. They borrowed money from family to secure another rent-stabilized apartment, hoping to avoid another surprise rent spike for another decade. Another article, this is from NYCHA, November 27, 2021, by Brooklyn News 12. Bed-Stuy NYCHA residents say they have been without heat for 3 weeks. Lord have mercy.
See?
Lord have mercy. Bed-Stuy NYCHA resident. This is New York City Housing Authority. They're supposed to provide, you know, affordable housing to New Yorkers. Their residents say they have been without heat for 3 weeks.
And how long were those complaints for 333? Because I saw that list of complaints, and I don't even know how far back those went.
Those complaints were only for 2021.
174 open violations for 333. 174 open.
What?
174 open violations for 333.
Yeah. Lord have mercy.
Hey, Richie.
Hey, Rich.
We on your ass like the smell of a bad fart.
Mm-hmm. So look, I went back to November 27, 2021. I went back to how many degrees it was outside on that day.
Freezing.
Y'all ready?
Mm-hmm.
The high was 39, the low was 24 on that day, where they published the article.
That's cold enough.
Can y'all believe that? The next day was 33 degrees. 2 days after that, on the 30th, the high was 31 degrees. That's below freezing. Yeah. And they still don't have heat.
Welcome to the slavery capital of the North, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, sir. It says residents who live in one NYCHA building in Brooklyn claim they have been without heat for 3 weeks. Yep. The people who live in the Eleanor Roosevelt houses in Bed-Stuy say they had to eat Thanksgiving dinner wearing a coat and gloves to stay warm. Oh. While Nancy Pelosi and all of these leaders have all the heat in the world, and they could go on Thanksgiving break, and they won't ever have to even think of wearing a coat inside of their own homes.
Of course.
And our tax dollars pay for them to be in the positions they're in.
AOC, we don't see you talking about this stuff. What's up, man? Like, you know, cat got your tongue?
Oh, you notice she just so happened to catch COVID on the exact day that the fire happened at 333.
Really?
I mean, I mean, you know, it maybe she really did, or whatever the case may be. And if she was sick, she was sick. Coincidentally, it was that day, and it was on Twitter. But if you look at her Twitter, there was no tweets after that about the building. Time just passed, and now she's going after Tucker Carlson for calling her out as not being a woman of color. It's like, what are you focused on? She's like talking about Republicans and like all this nonsense, and I'm just like, what are you doing for the Bronx? Like,
What's going on?
Right.
There's people having Thanksgiving dinners with coats and gloves to stay warm in their own houses, and you worried about Republicans? Yusuf, go ahead.
First off, New York City is blue, like through and through. Like, even though, like, in my opinion, it's stupid, but yo, we don't have that problem. Like the whole Republicans are the boogeyman. We don't have the threat of Republicans. You know what I'm saying? In New York City, I'm pretty sure New York City is completely run by Democrats on all levels. So what is she talking about? You got people over here who can't afford to live in their neighborhoods, in districts that you represent. You're not saying nothing about that. You represent the most underfunded borough in New York City. You're not saying nothing about that. Again, like, as Bedtas mentioned, like, she didn't say anything about 333 after she supposedly caught COVID. You don't, like, yo, like, you don't need to be healthy to post on Twitter or on Instagram. You don't need to, like, at the very least say something. You know what I'm saying? Like, she likes to talk about, oh, I used to work at a bar. I used to work at a restaurant. I'm from a working class background. Nigga, if you don't shut up. Like, yo.
Mind you, the New York Times put out an article. I can't even open it right now because it's behind a paywall, but I'm gonna go through my library and get a copy of it. But not to negate what Yusuf was saying, because you're 100% right. But the thing is that for the new election for 2021, Latinos in the Bronx turned the Bronx red. The whole Bronx went completely red.
Wow.
For the 2020 election. So,
Really?
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah, Latino. I don't know if it was like a particular Latino group, but I will attach it to this episode because I gotta find it. But it's behind a paywall, of course. The Bronx went completely red for the 2020 election.
Wow. Look at that.
So, if she's so worried about Republicans, what is she doing about all the red voters in the Bronx?
Let's talk about that. And so, you know, the article, you know, as I said, Eleanor Roosevelt houses in Bed-Stuy, they had to eat, you know, there's people who had to eat Thanksgiving dinner while wearing a coat and gloves to stay warm during a time when all family members are supposed to be warm and cuddled. And, you know what I'm saying? And you know, that family, that level of familial ties, you're supposed to feel it in the spirit of Thanksgiving. And it says News 12 reached out to NYCHA, which said, look at what NYCHA said. Y'all gonna believe this? NYCHA said, Roosevelt Houses is a third-party site and has a building management system, temperature system, which regulates the temperature inside buildings through an indoor sensor. We are not experiencing a service disruption at this location, and the BMS shows that temperatures in the buildings are satisfactory. How the hell is temperatures going to be satisfactory when on November 27, 2021, and dates prior to that, the temperature was no higher than 55 degrees, according to the tenants' rights on HPD's website? Someone please explain that to me.
Well,
please explain that to me.
They're full of shit.
The weather it went way below 50. Look, I'm looking at it right now. November 27, Okay, they said they've been complaining about this 3 weeks prior.
Right.
I'm looking at the weather right now. There's not a single day prior. There's not almost a single day prior that I'm seeing, maybe one, where the weather was above 55 degrees within the span of those 2 to 3 weeks that they're saying, and it was probably longer than that. Not a single day. So that means, and then let's take the 2 days before the article, November 27th, November 25th, or 24th, I should say. The degree was 40. The high was 45 degrees, not the low.
Yep.
The low was 30 degrees. This is 2021. So according to, basically they lied. They basically lied. You know what I'm saying? Basically lied.
Not surprised. You know, they lie all the time. Listen, man. They're going to lie. Like, it's not surprising that they lied about these things, because they're trying to decrease costs. They're trying to get out of paying for any type of, you know, renovation or, you know, or like, you know, fixing things. They want to get out of paying it. They don't want to spend that money. They just want to, you know, rake in money. They want to be predators and prey on, you know, working class, you know, citizens of New York City, especially, you know, Congressional District 15 of the Bronx. Like, and, you know, unfortunately, it's sad that these same people, these same landlords, they and here's what they do. Like, they donate to the campaigns of everybody that's running for any seat of office on any level. So no matter who wins, their interests are always protected. That's why odds are anybody like that. Odds are, like, on every level of government, like every level of our government is compromised. Local, city, state, you know, federal, they're all compromised. As I mentioned before, Richie Torres' campaign was partially funded by, you know, one of the landlords that, you know, one of the people that owns 333 East 181st Street. And this is what they do to keep their, you know, their interests, you know, to keep their interests protected. And then that's why you don't see anybody talking about any type of consequence for these people, even though they're clearly breaking the law. They're clearly breaking the law. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's right there on the government's own website. But the people in government are so buddy with these people because they're inside their pockets that they don't give a shit about you know, the little guy. They don't give a shit about the people who are actually living in these conditions. You know what I'm saying? So while we're over here suffering, while we're over here dying, while we're over here, you know, taking the brunt of everything, they're out there, you know what I'm saying, like, you know, chopping it up and going to these dinners and laughing and everything, because they just don't care.
They don't.
Yeah, and I mean, that's why all the politicians are, you know, staying with the narrative that at 333 it was the tenant's fault. And they're talking about sensors, they're talking about doors. It's because they're all taking money. They're taking money from these people. Meanwhile, the tenants are still living in the hotels, getting evicted, some of them pregnant. Me and you, Sekou, we went to the tenants. There was a tenant meeting.
With Benjamin Crump.
With Ben Crump and his team and all that. And the room was filled with people with lots of different situations, lots of different, you know, just issues they're dealing with, different levels of damage from the fire. And, you know, there's only so much that could be said at that point. I hope that Ben Crump and his team can help them. But, I mean, what's going on with them now? A lot of these people are being evicted. And where are they going? Where's Eric Adams? Where's Richie Torres? Richie's talking about Israel. And Eric Adams is getting ready to, you know, supposedly help homeless people and add more police to the trains.
To keep homeless people out of the trains.
Right. And supposedly he has resource plans for them and housing and all that. Okay, sure, we'll see. But we already know what more police in the trains is really going to be tasked with. So, yeah.
This is just we're as you know, we're living in a simulation. These people are bought from the top, and since they bought from the top, it's a conflict of interest. They cannot serve the public and serve the oppressors of the public at the same time.
Capitalism and white supremacy told them bend over. They said yes, daddy.
That's exactly what it is. You know what I'm saying? And so this is exactly the direction in which we're headed. It's a complete conflict of interest. You know what I'm saying? And so they are not. We're living in a simulation. The last article, you know, I read pertaining to just violations. And look, let me tell y'all something. The sad part is, if let's take a building, let's say it's 30 complaints. For every 30 complaints, there's double or triple the amount of complaints. Only 30 made it to the HPD violation website. I'm telling you right now. There's people who actually are scared to make complaints to the city because they might get evicted. They might, you know, raise their rent. They feel that their rent might be raised. They fear that they might, you know, get deported. So that's why I say, if you see if there's 30 that made it, trust and believe there's either 60 or 90 that didn't make it into the paper. That's a fact. So, you know, just to continue. New York Daily News. Y'all heard that? New York Daily News. It says, tenant complaints of hot water outages in the city's public housing jumped nearly 15% last year. Data obtained by the Daily News shows. This article was published February 8, 2022. Mind you, last year we were in the middle of a pandemic. I want y'all to keep in mind how, as Betash and Yusuf, how cannibalistic this is. We are in the middle of a pandemic. Everybody's home. Yet, instead of heating, increasing in the homes, it actually decreases. They said complaints about a lack of hot water rose from 1,480 complaints in 2019 to 2020 to 1,695 during the 2020-2021 heat season. That's 215 more complaints than the previous year, according to the data shared by the news. According to the data shared with the news by the Legal Aid Society. Again, keep in mind, this 1,695 is actually more than that, because there's people who are not making the complaints, and it's actually happening to them. Yes. Under New York City law, landlords are required to provide heat and hot water during the heat season from October 1 to May 31st. I'm getting hot. Let me unzip my sweater real quick, because this is hypocrisy at the highest level. I'm not surprised it's increased, public advocate Jermaine Williams told the news, as he and Bronx Borough President Vanessa Gibson toured the Fort Independence houses in the Bronx where tenants say they've lacked hot water and heat this winter. What have y'all done to solve this issue then?
I'm waiting.
Vanessa Gibson, Richie Torres, Eric Adams.
Vanessa Gibson, bruh, these people are all useless, man. Like, Vanessa Gibson in particular, when even the tragedy at 333 happened, she was giving them the bare minimum, like, you know what I'm saying, like, air purifiers. Like, what? Like, why you get people talking about, like, and you the borough president, like, you're in a position of power. These people need housing, they need resources. Like, they lost everything. Like, a lot of people lost everything they own. You want to talk about we're gonna give you air purifiers? Really?
Air purifiers,
bro. If you don't sit your ass on somewhere, like.
The article continues, and I want y'all to listen to this very carefully. This is the point that I'm trying to drive at. He says, we also know people have just stopped calling because they're tired of calling and not getting anywhere, tickets getting closed, and we're pretty sure that number is even higher. What did I tell y'all?
Of course.
What did I tell y'all? People stop calling because they're tired of calling and not getting anywhere. Tickets getting closed. What?
Oh yeah, they're closing tickets and there's no improvement.
We are living in a simulation, brothers and sisters. It says the new data comes as politicians like Williams continue to blast NYCHA over water temperature issues Tuesday. Williams met with tenants at the complex in Kingsbridge just 2 days after front page report in the news detailed a months-long hot water outage. Carlton Manor, a NYCHA development in Rockaway, Queens. 4 Independence tenants said their problems mirrored those at Carlton Manor, an entire 344-unit building in the Bronx complex had heat going in and out all weekend, tenants said. It says, and I quote, hot water's the worst. If you shower between 6 and 9 a.m., you can't. It's ice cold.
Oh yeah. Even in my building, you wake up and get ready to go to work and it's ice cold water. You can't even shower. And then you get home and you can't even shower. You maybe have to wait till like 9, 10 o'clock in this hot water.
Oh my God.
And then when you get hot water, it's like 150 degrees. It's boiling out the faucet, which I guess is fine if you're making like tea. But it's dangerous for kids. And yeah, there's no like warm water. It's either ice cold or illegally hot.
Lord have mercy.
So, you kind of got to just make it work somehow.
Article continues, and I won't be too long. That big snowstorm, and she's talking about a snowstorm that happened earlier this year, right? Not this past weekend, the weekend before, there was absolutely no heat and no hot water. Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
We were boiling pots and turning on the oven to keep warm. Another tenant and mother of 3, Tiara Napier, says she also uses her oven to stay warm when there's no heat.
Yep.
I use the space heaters, and then if it's really cold and I unfortunately have to turn on our oven, which is not a safe thing, so you have to watch doing that as well. Said Napier, who added that her 14-year-old son caught pneumonia
Inside the apartment.
numerous times due to the cold. Her 14-year-old son has caught pneumonia numerous times due to the cold.
And forget about when there's no water. My building, the water breaks all the time because, of course, it's never properly fixed. There's times where you find out in the morning, you go to leave, and there's a sign last minute that there's not going to be any water all day. You can't wash your hands. You can't use the toilet. You can't shower. You can't wash dishes. I had to go outside to get like 3 jugs of water just to flush the toilet. And that's just in this building. So
Imagine Brooklyn, imagine Queens, imagine Staten Island, imagine Harlem, imagine, other parts of the Bronx. Can you just imagine?
yeah, these landlords get away with it all the time.
We're living in a simulation. Where is our humanity? Where's it at? So this is the tip of the iceberg. This is 1 to 2% of what is actually happening. We just wanted to highlight it to you guys. And we're going to segue into our last part, in which we discuss homelessness and home ownership, which ties into the housing in New York City, in which our brother here, Yusuf, will provide us with more context. Go ahead, Yusuf.
All right, so according to this website called coalitionforthehomeless.org, they have this fact sheet here, and I'm gonna read a couple of points off the fact sheet. Keep in mind that the statistics that they're getting from the New York City website. So this is gonna be in the description, so you could look at it and also click on the links for the website that they took their information from. So, New York City homelessness, the basic facts. In recent years, homelessness in New York City has reached the highest levels since the Great Depression of 1930s.
Oh my goodness. Oh my what? Please repeat that again, Yusuf, because I don't think they heard that in the back.
Let me run that back.
Run that back, bro.
In recent years, homelessness in New York City has reached the highest levels since the Great Depression of the 1930s. Y'all remember that economic crisis that happened, and then FDR ended up doing the New Deal, and where they excluded a bunch of, black Americans, descendants of slaves, and, where they did all these stuff, and which is partially the reason why, partially the reason for the racial wealth gap or the lineage wealth gap. Y'all know that? The Great Depression? Yeah. Now, homelessness is higher than is the highest since that era, 1930s, right? All right. In December 2021, there were 48,691 homeless people, including 15,227 homeless children sleeping each night in New York City's main municipal shelter system, a near record. 18,704 single adults slept in shelters each night in December 2021. So in December 2021, every night there were 48,691 homeless people in shelters. This does not include the homeless people that are on the trains. That does not include the homeless people that are on that sleep under the bridges. That does not include the homeless people that are on the streets. No, these are just homeless people in shelters. So now, once you factor all of that in, imagine how many homeless people are out there.
Oh my goodness.
Over the course of city fiscal year 2021, 107,510 different homeless adults and children slept in the New York City Department of Homeless Services shelter system. This includes 31,947 homeless children. Families entering the shelters predominantly come from a few cluster zip codes in the poorest neighborhoods in New York City. However, homeless families and single adults come from every community district, whatever. The number of homeless New Yorkers sleeping each night in municipal shelters is now 16% higher than it was 10 years ago.
Oh my goodness.
The number of homeless single adults is 91% higher than it was 10 years ago. Let me run that back.
Run it back. Please. Please run it back.
The number of homeless New Yorkers sleeping each night in municipal shelters is now 16% higher than it was 10 years ago. So the total number of homeless people sleeping in the shelters is 16% higher than it was, say, in 2011. Mind you, this is right after we came out of the financial crisis of 2008, right? All right, so the number of homeless single adults is 91% higher than it was 10 years ago. Okay, research shows that compared to homeless families, homeless single adults have higher rates of serious mental illness, addiction disorders, and other severe health problems. Each night, thousands of unsheltered homeless people sleep on New York City streets, in the subway system, and in other public spaces. There is no accurate measurement of New York City's unsheltered homeless population, and recent city surveys significantly underestimate the number of unsheltered homeless New Yorkers. Studies show that the large majority of unsheltered homeless New Yorkers are people living with mental illness or other severe health problems. Black and Hispanic / Latinx New Yorkers are disproportionately affected by homelessness, more so black, but it continues. Approximately 57% of heads of households in shelters are black. 57. So more than half.
I heard that.
Of the heads of households, of the families living in New York City shelters are black. More than half. 32% are Hispanic, 7% are white, less than 1% are Asian American or Native American, and 4% are of unknown race or ethnicities. In city fiscal year 2021, the average length of stay in the DHS shelter system was 476 days for single adults.
Oh my goodness, bro. I
So-
can't believe what I'm hearing right now.
520 days for families with children, 773 days for adult families. In November 2019, DHS estimated that 77% of adult families, 68% of single adults, and 53% of families with children sleeping in shelters had at least one disability. To put this in perspective, our new mayor, Eric Adams, is trying to enforce, he's trying to increase cops at train stations and trying to enforce laws that homeless people cannot, sleep. Homeless people have nowhere to go, cannot sleep on the trains. Given this information that most of the homeless people out there on the streets are suffering from mental illnesses and disabilities, and knowing the brutality of the New York City Police Department, we have a mayor who is trying to further criminalize homelessness. Not just criminalize homelessness, further criminalize homelessness by using the most violent police force in this nation. If that doesn't worry you, if that's not a problem, if that's not a cause of concern for you, you have a problem. There's a problem with you.
And this is all tied back to housing in New York City. And so, Yusuf, briefly break down home ownership. The ability to even own a home in terms of the American dream here in New York City. Please briefly break that down to us.
Listen, man, we all know the American dream died years ago.
Years.
Especially for our generation, man. Millennials and Gen Z, the American dream, it died for us, man. Bruh. So, this article from the Federal Reserve's website, it talks about household wealth and wealth by race, right? So there's a section in the article for home ownership. It says, for many families, housing is the biggest component of wealth. The relationship between housing and family wealth is complex. On the one hand, the ability to purchase a home is a reflection of wealth a family already has or their parents' wealth, as noted earlier, as significant funds are generally required for a down payment and closing costs. On the other hand, home ownership has also been found to yield strong financial returns on average and to be a key channel through which families build wealth. Life cycle patterns of home ownership by age and by race and ethnicity are similar to the patterns of wealth. Home ownership rises sharply from young to middle age regardless of race or ethnicity. At the same time, within each age group, there are significant gaps in home ownership between white and non-white families, with the biggest gaps between white and black families. Among young families, about 46% of white families own their home, compared to just 17% of black families.
17%.
So, white families under the ages of 35 almost have the amount of white families under the age of 35 that own their homes are almost 3 times the amount of black families.
Lord.
And you know, we gotta note that almost 90% of uh of blacks in America are descended from chattel slavery, right? So the people who built this nation, the American descendants of slavery, they have like white families have 3 times the they have 3 times the ability to, you know, own a home than the chances of a white family owning a home is 3 times the chances of a black family, basically, is what I'm saying. Right? That's a problem. And things get even worse. Listen. This gap may partially reflect differences in parental wealth, as previous research has found that black families are far less likely to receive down payment assistance from their parents because their parents don't have money. They don't have the wealth. Delaying transitions into home ownership, which is also why reparations for American descendants of slavery is very important. Reparations for ADOS. The black-white gap of nearly 30 percentage point narrows somewhat among middle-aged and older families. For example, 73% of middle-aged white families own their homes, compared to 51% of middle-aged black families. Meanwhile, the gap in the home ownership rate between young white families and young Hispanic families is about 18 percentage points. In contrast to the white-black gap, the white-Hispanic home ownership gap expands somewhat among middle-aged and older families. In addition to gaps in home ownership, there are also significant gaps in home values among homeowners by race and ethnicity. For homeowners, the typical white family's home value is $230,000, and the typical other family's home value is $310,000. Wait, hold up. The typical black and Hispanic family's home values are lower at $150,000 and $200,000 respectively. Gaps in home values are caused both by gaps in purchase prices and housing appreciation, which are a reflection of a combination of factors including resource gaps, income and down payments, residential segregation, and age of entry into home ownership. So this is just a section of, you know, the of an article by the Fed that talks about, you know, household wealth. As you can see, you know, in this, there's a chart here that also shows that black people are least likely than any other group in this nation to own their homes on every level, be it under 35, between 35 and 54, and over 55. Blacks are the least likely to own their homes. And again, some 90% of blacks in America are ADOS, American descendants of slavery, which brings me back to what I was saying before. Reparations for our ADOS brethren.
Period. Yep. And so, you know, Yusuf, thank you so much for that breakdown.
It's not. I'm not even finished, man.
You're not even finished.
I'm not even done.
Lord have mercy.
So there's this other article by Redfin. So they said in January 2022, the median price for a home is $561K. Now, like, I don't know whether or not this is for a single family or a 2-family or 3-family home. I don't know. I'm guessing it's for a single family. I'm not sure, but I'm guessing. That's, you know, just an assumption. And given that, you know, to purchase a home, the down payment, you're gonna have to pay somewhere between 3 to 6% of the asking price. So basically, you need to have at the very least $20,000. You need to pay up at the very least $20,000 as down payment, and also to even qualify to buy a home, you need to have at least four times the down payment. If I'm not mistaken, you need to have at least your income needs to be at least 40 times the the down payment.
Look at that.
And with that, as I mentioned all the time, median income in Congressional District 15 in the Bronx is $17,731. Where we gonna get that money from?
Lord knows.
The American dream is dead. For millennials and Generation Z, the American dream is dead. Our country has cannibalized us. It feeds on our suffering. Our politicians are neglecting us. Even those who claim that housing is their agenda, their whole agenda is housing, to get people better housing, like Richie Torres. They're not doing anything. They don't care. This is the cannibal nation, people.
Period.
I need y'all to understand that. We live in the cannibal nation.
We do. Man, that was powerful, Yusuf. Thank you for breaking that down. Really, really, much appreciated. And as he said, just to wrap up, we're living in a simulation. We have a housing crisis that's going on. These politicians are all bought. They have conflict of interest everywhere, and they're contradicting themselves every step of the way. The only answer is if we stand up and our humanity, we question our humanity and we try our best to restore it. That's the only answer.
Yeah, no, revolutionary change is definitely needed, meaning that we have to do things we haven't done before. It's time for better solutions. As we said before in the beginning of this season, we have to start aligning with different solutions, better solutions. We can't keep doing the same things over and over again. And so as we go on, we'll obviously need to focus on more specific things. I mean, continuing political education is important, and we will. But all of us, we need to continue to look at those with newer, better solutions, and we have to align with those. We can't just keep thinking voting is the only way, out of this. Not unless there's new politicians with new ideas and better solutions that are gonna, agree to the citizens' demands. Other than that, we're just doing the same stuff.
Absolutely.
Stop voting Democrat. Stop voting blue no matter who. Like, you are the problem. If you're just voting blue no matter who, you are the problem. Stop voting Democrat without any policy. Stop. You're killing us. You're helping them kill us.
It's a fact.
You're part of the problem.
It's a fact.
You're not helping at all.
That's a fact. With that, as they all said, better solutions moving forward so that we could create a better society for all.
As a matter of fact, stop funding Democrats. Don't give them money. Stop funding AOC. Stop funding the squad. Stop giving Richie Torres money. These people go in there. They don't represent our interests. They go in there to further their careers. They don't care about us. They take money from these people. You know what I'm saying? Even the ones who don't take money from them, they work with them on all levels.
It's a fact.
AOC, Ilhan Umar, Rashida Tlaib, Cori Bush, all of them, the squad, they got into government and they sold out the people. They ran on opposing Nancy Pelosi. Now they all call her Mama Bear.
Immediately.
Richie Torres ran on housing. What's he doing for the people at 333?
Yep.
Absolutely nothing.
Talk to him. Yes.
They don't care. Stop voting Democrat. Stop voting Democrat without an agenda. Stop supporting these people. Stop giving them money. You're part of the problem.
That's what it is. This concludes our episode, and it also concludes our season. We thank you all for tuning in from the first episode leading up to this one. We really appreciate all of the support that was given to us from day one. You guys know exactly who you are, and we really appreciate y'all. We'll be back in the fall with more content, and trust me, this is just the beginning. We just getting started. That's a promise. So we thank you all. Much appreciated again. Tune into our next season in the fall. We'll be giving out details and everything of that sort, as the months go by. Again, this is Sekou.
And this is Betash.
And it's Yusuf Sadiq.
Thank you for tuning in to our season 1 preliminary thoughts. Much appreciated. Peace.